Singapore's Omicron wave has started and according to one expert, may only peak in February or March. A new book written by Straits Times journalists offers a fresh perspective on the key moments in the fight against COVID-19. And it's time to get snacking on your festive favorites in this week's Life Picks. Good evening, you're watching The Big Story with me, Haryanto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you will not miss a single episode. Has the Omicron wave hit Singapore yet? Well, the answer, according to experts, is yes. Since Singapore reported its first Omicron case in early December, infection numbers have climbed steadily. Out of a total of a new 1,615 COVID-19 cases reported yesterday, there were 965 local and 220 imported Omicron cases. Professor Teo Yik Ying, Dean of NUS's Saw Swee Hock School of Public Health, offers his insights on the Omicron wave and what we need to look out for.
So while it is true that our Omicron wave has started, the border control measures, as well as the community safe management measures, such as the cap on 5 people to socialize and dine in, as well as the necessary mask wearing, actually means that our increase in the Omicron cases will not be as crazily fast as what we have seen in Europe and in North America. In some of these cities, Omicron has practically replaced Delta as the dominant variant driving the COVID-19 outbreak. So our case numbers will increase steadily, but perhaps at a slower pace than in cities like London, Berlin, or New York. However, because these cities have been hit hard and fast by Omicron, the rapid spread actually meant a lot of people were infected within a very short time, and these people acquired the natural immunity that protected them against a repeat infection within a short span. So we are in fact starting to see the surge slowing down in many of these cities and what we call the Omicron wave to be easing. In Singapore, our measures are helping to keep us protected from a rapid surge in Omicron infections. But that does mean that our Omicron wave will be drawn out for a longer period and the peak will not happen so quickly, perhaps only in February or even March. So as with Delta, our main concern has always been whether a sharp increase in infection numbers will lead to an increased pressure on our hospitals, our ICUs. And that continues to be what we are watching very carefully. So it's going to be a tough compromise, whether we choose between a long-drawn battle with Omicron that will last a few months more in order to be very careful and protective of our health system. But at the same time, that also means we are unable to make any big transition moves to endemic COVID-19, where we see more restrictions lifted or even travel resume in a big way over this period.
The Straits Times has released a 352-page book marking the first 2 years of Singapore's fight against COVID-19. In this Together, Singapore's COVID-19 story is divided into two parts: saving lives and saving livelihoods. Our journalists spoke to more than 300 people, including Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, President Halimah Yacob, Cabinet Ministers, frontline workers, volunteers, foreign workers and survivors. Now you'll read about stories of suffering and resilience and of miscalculation and foresight. One of the 13 chapters features 24 people who saved the life of one woman, Madam Tan, who caught COVID-19. Joining me now are ST's Executive Editor Sumiko Tan, who edited the book, and Health Correspondent Timothy Goh, who wrote several segments in the book. Sumiko, start us off first. How did the idea to write a COVID-19 book come about, and what makes this book different from other COVID-19 accounts?
Hi, Haryanto. Well, there were actually two main reasons we did the book. The first one was in the early days of COVID, I was overseeing the coverage in the newsroom. So I attended quite a few of those briefings by MCI, by MOH, and I could see how stressed out all these public servants were. And I also oversaw some specials we did on frontliners, for example, and I did some stories myself. And I remember contact tracers, and I remember the sort of stress they were going through. So one of the reasons we decided to do the book was as a tribute to the frontliners. And this kind of leads on to the second reason. I was thinking to myself, as journalists, what can we do to help in this pandemic effort? And I thought what we do best, which is to chronicle news events, could be put together into a book so that we would put on record this very pivotal moment in our history for future generations. You also asked how different the book is from other books on COVID. I think the main one is that it's told through a journalistic lens. So everything is very factual. It's been fact-checked a gazillion times. It's also written by expert specialists from the newsroom. So we have people like Salma Khalid, who wrote a chapter on hospitals. We have Audrey Tan, who wrote a chapter on the science behind the virus. Yeah, so I think that makes it a bit special.
On that, Timothy, you contributed a fair bit to this project as well. What's the hardest part of writing the book?
Thanks, Haryanto. I mean, quite honestly, I think one of the hardest parts was trying to keep up with all the constant changes, because a book is rather static. And I remember initially we were hoping to publish the book at the start of 2021. So when we did our interviews at the end of 2020, all the people we spoke to, there was a certain triumphant kind of sense that yes, COVID was difficult, but look, we have gone through the year and we have beaten it, and now the worst is behind us. Let's look back and reflect on this. Unfortunately, as we all know, things worsened a lot in 2021, and as a result, every time there was a change in policy or case numbers spiked, we had to adjust our stories accordingly. And so that meant rewriting entire stories, coming up with new stories, trying to crunch down old ones, getting rid of things that were no longer relevant. And we had to repeat this process, I think, about 4 or 5 different times. Every time we thought, okay, things are better now, we can publish. Cases would rise again, and we would have to redo everything all over again. It was an extremely, extremely tedious process.
And Tim, what is it like to have worked on so many COVID-19 stories over the past 2 years, involving many segments in society?
Well, it's kind of surreal, actually. I actually remember the first time, in the first few weeks of the pandemic, when we all thought that this was going to be like SARS and it was going to be over in a couple of months. And, back then we thought the impact would be mostly limited to maybe tourists and the healthcare sector. But as things went on and on and on, we realized that really this is a virus that hit every single person from every walk of life, no matter if you're a minister, a migrant worker, a hawker, some rich tycoon, everyone is affected in some way. Now, obviously, through speaking to many different groups of people, we also realized that there are some inequalities that were brought up by the pandemic. It's obviously a lot more difficult to be a migrant worker in this pandemic, for instance, or someone living in a small rental flat. But that being said, when we spoke to even the MTF, who always appear so confident in front of people, to the various policymakers who seem to be making these firm, decisive moves, and when talking to them, we find out about these private concerns and fears they had, and how close we may have come to failure at some points. And you see the tiredness on everybody's faces. You realize that really, at the end of it, we are all just human beings trying to get through these unprecedented times together.
Sumiko, similar experience for you as well. And on that note, of course, the pandemic is still ongoing. So how do you produce a book that doesn't have an ending yet?
Yeah, like what Tim said, one of the biggest challenges was how the pandemic kept on going. and we couldn't stop the book we couldn't find a good window to put the book out. In the end, we decided that we had to put it out. We thought that 2 years, looking back on the first 2 years, would be a good milestone. So we had to cut off somewhere. So we decided to cut off around November. And I remember when we were putting the sort of finishing touches to the book, Omicron started. And then we were thinking like, oh dear, do we have to stop work again? But we decided to write it such that Omicron could play out both ways, either it was serious or not serious. And then we wrapped the book up.
And Sumiko, just to round out our discussion today, can we expect perhaps a sequel?
You got to ask him and the rest. I think it did take quite a lot out of us when you say him.
I shuddered when he suggested it, yes.
Yes.
Well,
but I mean,
so
if
much,
things really
Sumiko.
do end well, yeah, why not? We could do a part 2.
Well, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Sumiko and Timothy, for the sharing. That was Sumiko Tan, Executive Editor at the Straits Times, and Timothy Goh, our health correspondent. Thank you both. In This Together, Singapore's COVID-19 story is available in major bookstores from today for $28. You can also order a copy at stbooks.sg. Now, we'll love to hear what you think of it. Overseas, after suspending its quarantine-free test and go visa program last month, Thailand is opening the program once again for vaccinated visitors with applications starting on February 1st. Foreigners will just need to undergo 2 COVID-19 tests, one upon arrival and another on the 5th day. This development essentially allows for 2-way quarantine-free travel for vaccinated Singapore residents, as Thailand is also under our vaccinated travel lane scheme. Over in Malaysia, house visits and family reunion dinners will be allowed during Chinese New Year, as health experts there aren't expecting a COVID-19 surge, given that most adults are fully vaccinated. Celebrations on the 15th day of CNY can also go ahead, and lion and dragon dances can be performed. What isn't allowed though are open houses, which often involve a constant stream of visitors, including the public. In non-COVID-19 news, the body of 22-year-old Malaysian woman Khoo Yi-Ju was found in Pasir Ris Sungai Api-Api River on Tuesday night, 3 days after she went missing. According to Miss Khoo's aunt, with whom she lives, she was last seen at the bus stop opposite Chai Chee Industrial Park after she had left work at around 6 p.m. on Sunday. Miss Khoo was working in Singapore as an assistant Chinese teacher in a tuition centre. Freehold condominium Gloria Mansion on Pasir Panjang Road has been sold en bloc for $70.3 million, making it the first full residential collective sale since cooling measures were announced last month. The new owners are Fraxter Capital and a group linked to brothers Daniel Teo and Teo Tek Weng. The Singapore Flyer is suspending operations of its observation wheel after a technical issue was detected during a routine maintenance inspection. Its operator, Straco Leisure, is working with the Building and Construction Authority to conduct the necessary inspection, repairs and rectification works. There's no restart date yet, but other parts of the building remain open, like the time capsule attraction, as well as shops and restaurants. Let's get you ready for the weekend with the best of live picks. Whether it's Chinese New Year goodies to indulge in or a stunning film shot in black and white, we've got you covered. But first, opening this weekend at the Art Science Museum is an exhibition on the radical world of Buckminster Fuller. Assistant Live Editor Olivia Ho is with us. Olivia, why are you excited about this exhibition?
Well, I think I'm very excited because Buckminster Fuller is a truly fascinating figure. So he was this American architect, systems theorist, author, designer, inventor, and he was born in 1895, but he had these ideas that were way before his time. So he was thinking of things like sustainability, the conservation of the Earth's resources, data analytics, and I think a lot of people thought that at the time that he had these ideas, they thought that he was crazy, but it's only in this century, the 21st century, that a lot of his ideas have truly found an appreciative audience. So I think today people may mostly know him for having invented the geodesic dome. So that's a hemispherical thin shell structure that's based on the geodesic polyhedron. And you see the structure everywhere around the world. In Singapore, you will probably recognize it in the design of Jewel Changi Airport. And it's even the Art Science Museum itself is sort of influenced by Buckminster Fuller. And he did come to Singapore actually in 1971. He was invited by architect Lim Cheong Kiat to come here, and he spoke to some 300 architects and students at what was then the University of Singapore. So in the exhibition, there is a bamboo ball inscribed to Bucky for Arch Students 1971 Singapore.
Assistant Life Editor Olivia Ho. Now, the exhibition runs from this Saturday till July 10th at the Art Science Museum. Next up, I know some of you have started stocking up on your Chinese New Year goodies. Food Editor Tan Sheryin joins me now. Xue, I know you're in your car right now, still on the hunt for the best CNY snacks. But tell us, some of the treats that you've tried so far.
Okay, well, I really like the treats from Auntie Hong. It's an online-only business, and the packaging is really beautiful. So I thought that it was actually a company and they're just using like a fake Auntie Hong. But Auntie Hong exists. She's a 60-year-old woman. She's been baking her cookies for friends and family since the 1990s. And I really like her wares. I have 3 things to recommend from her. One is golden peanut puffs. They are so fresh. They taste really fresh, and the peanut and sugar filling is not too sweet. Love it. And the other thing, these are belinjal cookies. So they are like really buttery cookies with little bits of belinjal keropok in it. And it's so delicious. There's something, the cookie is sweet and the belinjal is a little bit bitter. So there's like kind of like a bittersweet vibe, sweet savory vibe as well. Delicious. And the other thing that I really love, and it's so addictive, big belinjal crackers with like a sweet and savory prawn paste coating. Oh, I could just finish the entire packet in one sitting.
Whew, sounds yummy. I'll have to get my hands on those snacks. That was Food Editor Tan Sheryin. Now, what about a tale of murder, madness and cunning ambition? The Tragedy of Macbeth has landed on Apple TV Plus and at the projector. Journalist Jan Lee has seen the movie and joins me now. Jan, the trailer looks amazing. Oscar winners Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand in leading roles, as well as directed by Joel Coen in his first solo project. I have high hopes for the movie. Tell us more.
Yes, I've watched it. It is a visually stunning film. That's the only thing, you need to know about it. It's beautiful to watch. So for people who don't know, it is based on the Shakespearean play, Macbeth, and it is shot entirely in black and white. And there's a lot of play of light and dark, the cinematography is gorgeous, like every scene you take out, and it is one of the best frames of the year, everything is staged beautifully. And one thing that I really appreciated was that they used the original Shakespearean language. So the lines spoken by the actors Denzel Washington, Frances McDormand are all, from the original play. So you get very famous monologues. As a former literature student, I was I really loved watching it unfold like that, because there is a difference between like studying Macbeth as a text, reading the words, and having someone so magnetic and so charismatic like Denzel Washington speak the lines. So it really made me have a renewed appreciation for the text itself. And also, as I said, it is a beautiful movie. You know, the set design is very, very creative. It's meant to look very fake and very sparse at times, and it's very creative. I think it's a film that I think if you ever did Macbeth in school, you should definitely watch it. It's not a super happy story, but it is a very interesting movie to watch.
You've certainly made me very excited about the movie, Jen. Well, thank you so much, journalist Jen Lee. Now, here's something else for you to check out this weekend. A new inflatable sculpture by French artist Cyril Lancelot has appeared at Marina Bay, and it's the first time the artwork will be seen outside of Europe. For more live pics, go to str.sg/live. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.